So what we did was we built custom GPTs that take in that T12. And once again, we don't give in any instructions. We've already done that. We just throw the file in. So
Yeah.
incoming property comes in, we take the T12, it's in Excel or a PDF, we throw it in.
Yeah.
And then about 5 minutes later, it takes 5 minutes. It's not like instant, it doesn't throw it out. It takes its time. In 5 minutes, it provides the most wonderful, detailed T12 analysis. And it does something that's pretty amazing.
Hey, welcome friends to Commercial Real Estate Unfiltered. Today I'm excited to introduce you to Neal Bawa. He is the CEO of Grocapitus, Mission 10K, and MultifamilyU, and is widely known as the mad scientist of multifamily. He manages a large multifamily real estate portfolio across multiple U.S. markets and is recognized for his data-driven approach to real estate investing and market analysis. Neal is also the author of Location Magic and Profit with a Purpose and speaks frequently about the role of AI and data in real estate investing. Neal, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having me on the show. I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, well, I would love to hear a little bit of background on how you got into multifamily investing. Maybe let's start there.
Yeah, I fell into it. I am a recovering technologist, a computer science degree, had a proper tech career, ran a company with hundreds of employees that was a technology and healthcare company, not a startup, and ran it for 15 years, and we were making good money. And I live in Taxifornia and a big fat tech salary. So I felt like I was not working for my company. I felt like I was working for the IRS. And in 2003, the senior partner in the firm decided that we were going to build a custom campus. And we built it. It took about 15 months. So most people get into real estate by doing a flip or buying a first rental. My first experience in real estate was a fire hose thing where we had to build a campus from scratch, and it was huge. It was 27,000 square feet,
Wow.
custom built, and it took about a year and a half, and we were building it and growing our business at the same time. But at the end of it, I noticed that because I had a small depreciation piece in it, my income was going up, but my take-home income was also going up at the same time. Basically, my taxes were falling. And that's when I discovered depreciation. And initially, I remember saying to my wife, and it's a joke, but I remember saying to her, real estate is possibly the greatest legal tax scam in American history. Now I understand it's not a scam because I understand what depreciation is and the fact that depreciation is a legitimate accounting tool. But back then, I was just shocked by the fact that was just because I was a real estate investor, all of a sudden I was making a lot more money and paying a lot less in taxes. It was just stunning. And that realization was huge because it did two things. One, it made me want to buy real estate. And second, it just gave me more money to buy real estate.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're called the mad scientist of multifamily. Tell me a little bit about how you got that nickname.
So by 2008, 2009, I had collected a lot of money in the bank because I was paying less in taxes, right? I was deferring my taxation. Hadn't bought any single families yet. And I should have just gone straight to multifamily, but I didn't. I didn't have the guts to do that. And in 2008, I had the money. I was like, I'm going to invest in real estate because I've had a really good experience. But around me, everyone was basically telling me that I was the greatest idiot of all time because, everything's falling apart. Real estate's only bad news and more bad news. So everyone's telling me I was an idiot. But I am a computer science graduate. Data science is an area of interest to me. So I decided I'm going to take all of the data from all the different sources I can find, Zillow and Trulia and Redfin and Bureau of Labor Statistic, and put it into a statistical analysis software to understand by looking at trend analysis over the last 50 years, was this a good time to buy real estate or was it a bad time? And I fully expected that it would say this is a horrible time.
Right.
But what the software outputted was that this was the greatest time in 50 years to buy real estate.
Yeah.
It was essentially saying that, right? It wasn't saying, not in so many words, but that's the analysis.
Yeah.
And I was a little bit stunned. So I was like, I showed it to a couple of my friends who were also data scientists. One guy was in Apple, one guy was in HP. And they looked at it and they said, yeah, this is surprising, but there's no flaw in this. All of it makes sense.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to go tell my family. So I went to a family party and I basically opened my mouth, spent 20 minutes, explained it to my family. They had listened very carefully. And after that, they banned me from all of their parties because they were afraid that I would infect boys in the family with my stupid ideas. So I didn't get to go to family parties for a year. I was a little pissed off about that. So I was like, okay, I'm going to show these people that what I'm doing has some merit. And so Meetup.com was a company that had just started at that point of time, and they were heavily promoting their stuff. So I decided to open a Meetup group inside my company. I had big conference rooms, so my commute to go to a Meetup was 150 feet from my corner office.
Great.
That was awesome. Because I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, just to go to a Meetup would take an hour in the evening, right? Shower traffic. So I basically opened the Meetup inside my business. And we gave it a stupid name like Real Estate Data Analytics or something. Now it's called Location Magic. So we didn't know what we were doing. We just wanted to get started.
Yeah.
And the first time, 4 people showed up, and all of them were the right people, actual data scientists, programmers, because I'm in Silicon Valley, right? You
Yeah.
hit a rock, you throw a rock, you'll hit a programmer, and it'll bounce off and hit another programmer, right?
Yeah.
There's so many of us. So, but it was the right people, and they were basically looking at what I was doing, and they were like, yeah, this is very compelling stuff, right? And like, how come nobody else is saying anything about it? It's like, right now, it's fashionable to just bash real estate if you're somebody that has an audience.
Yeah.
And I don't have an audience. I'm not a real estate guy. I'm running a tech company. And they're like, yeah, but this is really cool. We want other people to see it. So the next time I held the meetup, there were 10 people. And then the third or fourth time we held it, we had 100 people.
Wow.
And mostly very geeky, sort of analytical people. And because they were making good money like I was, programmers make $300,000-$400,000 in the San Francisco Bay Area. They are money. And so we were like, okay, let's make this more practical. We don't want to just analytically say this is a great time to invest. So we started ranking cities. So there's 323 metros in the US. There's 1,016 cities in those metros. And we basically said, okay, we're going to basically start ranking these metros for real estate investment. And from time to time, the things that matter change, right?
Yeah.
So today, for example, the greatest weightage that we give to any criteria is supply, incoming supply. But back in 2008, 2009, the criteria was drop from peak, right? Which means that the peak for most real estate was 2005. So most places peaked in 2005. And so now when you're looking at it in 2009, in 4 years, there's been a drop, right? And we were measuring that drop city by city. And we realized that was the most important factor back then. There were other factors like population growth, job growth, income growth, home price growth, all of those matters. Right back then, of course, there was no home price growth. All 23 markets had declining home prices. And so we looked at that factor and we started to rank cities, and we found this city called Madera, California. And it was 144 miles from the Bay Area. I'd never heard of it. It was like a farming city, and it was next to Fresno. And it had the greatest drop. And so I got into the car, drove 144 miles on a Saturday, and went into an office. And they were selling these homes, and they were selling them for $95,000 each. And I walked in and I said, what does it cost to build this home? It's clearly brand new. Nobody's lived in it. It's 4 bedrooms, Kaufman and Broad. It's a branded home. And they said it costs about $250,000 to build. And I said, so it costs $250,000 to build, and you're selling it for $95,000? They said, yeah, because there's 5,000 of them empty. All these farm workers bought them using stated income. They've all disappeared. And so we've got 5,000 of these things empty. And I said, so why isn't everyone buying them? That's stupid to me. I'm saying if the replacement cost is $250 and it's brand new and you're buying it for $95, how can you lose money? And they're like, yeah, but where do you find the tenants? So that's when the mad scientist in me came out. So I came up with a crazy idea, which I continue to use to this day. I went and found a Ukrainian online. I'm a tech guy, so I know how to find these people. And I found a person in the Philippines, a lady in the Philippines. And so I told the Ukrainian, I'm going to go buy a old 3-bedroom property in Fresno, 20 miles away. Fresno is a big metro, so there was demand. And I want you to get me thousands of tenant leads for this one property. And the Ukrainian said, are you crazy? You probably need 30 or 40 tenant leads before somebody will lease this property. Why do you need thousands?
Yeah.
I said, no, trust me, just charge me for it and give me thousands of leads. And so every time a lead would come in, it would go straight into the Filipino person's mailbox, and she would pick up the phone and call them. And she would basically make an offer, and she would say, this property in Fremont, Fresno is rented, but we have 10 properties that we're buying in Madera, 22 miles away. If you go there, we'll give you a $50 Amazon gift card. All you have to do is go there, check out the property, and come back. You get a $50 gift card. 5 out of 10 people thought we were some kind of scam, so they would hang up on us. A couple would argue with us, and eventually, like 1 out of 10, 1 out of 15 would be like, okay, fine, I'll go there. So they would drive to Madera, realize that it was a brand new, gorgeous 2,000 square foot Kaufman and Broad property that nobody had ever lived in.
Yeah.
It was brand new. And they would be so stunned by my rents because I was just trying to basically, I wasn't trying to get fair rents. I was just trying to get enough rent so that I could
Right.
buy the property. And so the price was $995, right?
Wow.
And so what they would do is I would tell them, look, this property is not owned by me, but I'm going to get in contract within 24 hours if you want to rent it, right? So they would say yes. I would get $100 deposit from them, and I would go basically buy the property in cash.
Got it.
And then I would sign the contract with them. And then
Yeah.
I would rinse, repeat the process, buying dozens and dozens of properties. And people who were noticing this at the meetup, because I was showing people what I'm doing, eventually, like other people went and bought even more properties than I did because they had
Yeah.
more money. One guy bought like 67 properties, right? It was crazy. Because everyone was like, this is really great. This methodology is great. And you're truly a mad scientist, right? So that became a joke, and eventually people caught onto it. And eventually I was like, yeah, I'm a little bit like a mad scientist, so I can have that moniker.
Absolutely. I love that. How are some current economic trends affecting multifamily investing right now?
Right now actually is a pretty good time to buy because prices are down a lot, right? So 2022 was the peak of
Yes.
multifamily
Yes.
because rent growth was incredible. We had all that free money that came in from the government, more than $1 trillion. So renters were basically, the occupancies were very high, and
Yeah.
as a result, properties were extremely expensive. Today, the prices are down by between 20 and 30%
Wow.
on a per property basis, depending upon the metro, right? So some metros are down 20%, some are down 30%. Obviously, the biggest single reason for that is interest rates have almost doubled. But another thing that's affecting it is rent growth in the last 12 months nationwide has been flat. And in growth markets, every growth market in the United States, it's been negative.
Wow.
And when you think about it, inflation is 3%, right? Rent growth is usually a little bit higher than that, 3.5, 4%.
Yeah.
So that's what we're used to for the last 50 years, like that 4% rent growth. And now we're getting zero
Mm.
nationwide, and we're getting -1, -2, -3 in growth markets, right? And so that's a 7% delta. That's a huge delta.
Yeah.
And because that delta has happened over the last 12 months, you're basically paying less for a property because when you buy a multifamily, it's not like single family, right? Single
Right.
family, you're just trying to see, okay, this property on the corner had $1,800 in rent, so mine will get $1,800 in rent, and that's how I'm going to buy. That's obviously not how we do things in multifamily.
Right.
We look at the last 12 months of income, expenses, net operating income for the property, and then we set a price based on that, a multiple of
Right.
that price. So if your income's dropped in the last 12 months, then I have to pay you less.
Right.
Also, if the interest rates are high, then I'm going to pay you less because my cash flow is going to be less, right? But even if in the future I refinance at a lower interest rate, that's my benefit. So it's actually a pretty good time to buy, but most investors have a negative mindset because a lot of people have lost money in the last 3 years.
Mm.
Properties have gone down in value.
Yeah.
Cash flow has been low or zero for most properties. And so investor sentiment is lower, but it's not necessarily a bad time to buy simply because we think that this negative rent growth is going to go away in 2027, possibly in some metros even this year.
Okay.
And that means that you purchased close or near to the bottom or maybe even the bottom of the rents of the property. And if
Mhm.
now they go up in a straight line for 5 years, right?
Yeah.
You obviously get to have that benefit. Hopefully, you're not selling your property for 5 years, and you can ride that wave.
No, I think you make a great point, and you alluded to it earlier when you were talking about in 2008 when you were taking a look at this, and people were like, "It's horrible, it's horrible." And I think the last few years in commercial real estate have been tough. They really have. And this year, I started wanting to work with people that are looking for opportunity and looking for the data, the information, the trends, what's going on, so that we can find those opportunities. Because I think it's exactly what you said, is sometimes what we think the general public thinks is the worst time to buy is actually probably one of the better times to do so. And so you talk a little bit about build to rent and how that is becoming more of an important asset class. Can you maybe explain a little bit to our listeners about what that is and why you see that being an important asset class?
Yeah, the US was unique amongst developed nations. So if you look at Canada, Europe, Singapore, these kinds of places, the vast majority of the middle class lives in apartments. In many cases, they own their apartments, but it's still not a single family home. But we were unique in that almost two-thirds of Americans, as of call it 3 or 4 years ago, lived in a home that they own, right? Or
Mhm.
someone in their family owned. So it was very unique. We were definitely unique as a nation. And most of these were single families, some condos, but the vast majority were single families that people owned. And as a result, we are a culture where we're obsessed with the idea of living in a home where, Canadians are not like that. Europeans are not like that. Even rich Europeans live in,
Yeah.
townhomes and apartments. We're not like that. We don't think like that, right? To us, it's backyard, front yard, garage.
Yeah.
That is just burned into our head. And the problem is this. In the last 5 years, for middle class Americans and younger Americans, the dream of homeownership has been utterly, completely destroyed.
Yeah.
And it was alive until 2021. Because if you look at what the average American was paying for rent on a monthly basis versus the mortgage was higher, but it wasn't a huge gap. It was $200-300 on average across the US.
Yeah.
Currently, but because interest rates doubled, but home prices in the US did not drop. There has been no drop in US home prices over the last 4 years, even though the average mortgage has gone from 1,800-ish to 3,100-ish. And rents have only gone up about $200 in that time frame. So the gap between home price, average mortgage, and average rent on a monthly basis is now like $1,000.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
before it was $200. And that $1,000, it's unlikely to change because multifamily rents eventually will just keep going up. But single family, because we're not building enough, and now we can't build enough because all sorts of ICE issues. There's not enough construction workers. We've lost 25% of our construction workforce because they were undocumented. So we're probably not going to build that many single family homes. So that gap is enormous, right? And because that gap is enormous, roughly 18 million younger and middle class American families are now forever renters. They don't all realize it. They think that the dream will be there. But the math that I've showed you is very blatant. Unless these 18 million Americans all of a sudden one day receive a $50,000 salary raise, or at least a $40,000 salary, let's call it 40,000, they're not going to catch up. Some will. Out of 18 million, maybe 100,000 will catch up because they got lucky or they got into a lucrative field. But the remaining 18 million families, they're not going to catch up. They're forever renters. And so these forever renters, though, they make good money, right? In a previous generation, before 2021, they would have somehow, by hook and crook, got into a beginner single-family home, maybe it's 100 years old, and then they would have built their wealth over the next three decades. They can't do that. That option is closed. So they want to live in something that's as close to that dream that they've had in their head for the last 30 or 40 years. And that dream means that people will live in apartments as long as they can, but the moment they see the ability to find something that's not an apartment, they want to go there.
Yeah.
And build to rent sounds like an apartment because it's build to rent. Right. Basically, us building a new asset class, which is essentially today mostly townhomes, right? Some single family homes for rent, but single family homes for rent only works in some parts of the US. So the vast majority of builders like me are now pivoting to townhomes because that's the only thing that works. If you think about a townhome, you've still got a little backyard. It's probably smaller than a single family. And you might have one car garages or two car garages. My townhome community is like the one I just finished building and I'm leasing up. It has both one car and two car garages. So the two car garage property is $100 a month more. So if you have that kind of money, you can jump over. But the one car garage still gives you the ability to park a boat or have a motorcycle or have your car and then have your second vehicle parked outside. And with that little backyard, you can now have a dog or to poop in the backyard, and you can have that feeling of living in a home. And that's built to rent. It's really an apartment. That's not an apartment, it's a townhome.
Yeah.
And because it's a townhome, the density is lower.
Yep.
You can never have anybody above or below you for it to qualify as BTR. So you don't have anybody running up and down. There's no hallways in built to rent, so there's no smell of marijuana, no Rottweilers running around in the corridors. So people like it. And so it's an asset class that I think will do really well for the next 2 or 3 decades as a replacement home, rental, but still replacement home for those 18 million families that have lost the dream of homeownership.
That's interesting. That is super fascinating. And I also now wonder a little bit about being the field that you're in and how artificial intelligence is beginning to impact real estate investing. I know obviously you have access to more information. Maybe it's not all accurate, but yeah, how do you build an AI first real estate company?
The first thing that we did was we started training everyone on use of AI. And You might say everyone's using AI, right? You know how to use ChatGPT. That's not what we're talking about. Obviously, that's a good start, but most of the people that we employ knew how to do basic stuff on
Right.
ChatGPT. We're talking about building applications on ChatGPT, which we call powered strings, but ChatGPT calls them custom GPTs.
Okay.
So a custom GPT is a application that you've designed with custom instructions and files and access to Google Drive or access to Slack and things like that. You've connected a lot of things together and you've given it intelligence. And now whenever you want to use this app, you don't give it any instructions. For example, if it's doing a rent comp analysis, you simply name the property that you want to do the analysis for, and you plug it in and hit enter. You haven't told it anything. You've
Yeah.
already built an app. So now it will basically read the address, go out to the web, search apartments.com, rent.com, realtor.com, find the appropriate comps, filter out the ones that are not appropriate for you using the intelligence you gave it. And in about 20 minutes, it'll come back with a beautifully designed box that says, these are all the rent comps.
No.
That's incredible because that used to take us roughly an hour and a half to do.
Yeah.
Same thing for T12. So when we're looking to buy a multifamily property, we do an analysis of its last 12 months of income and expenses, which is called simply T12, right? Human beings are actually not very good at that kind of analysis, row analysis, because they don't find patterns within them unless they're looking at a chart. If you look at a bar chart, we can see patterns very easily, but at numbers, we tend to miss stuff. So what we were finding was even the best analysts we had ever hired were missing patterns, especially shady patterns in the data. And so what we did was we built custom GPTs that take in that T12. And once again, we don't give it any instructions. We've already done that. We just throw the file in. So incoming property comes in, we take the T12, it's in Excel or a PDF, we throw it in.
Yeah.
And then about 5 minutes later, it takes 5 minutes. It's not like instant, it doesn't throw it out. It takes its time. In 5 minutes, it provides the most wonderful, detailed T12 analysis. And it does something that's pretty amazing. It actually compares this T12 analysis to any others that it's done before area. So not only does it say, okay, here's what's happening at this property, here's what's good, here's what's bad, watch out for this. It says all of that. It says, look, this pattern here, there's a problem here. They're hiding something from you, right?
Yeah.
But it says, when I compare this to all the other properties that I've analyzed in the past, here's where this property stands. Its income is better than this other property that we looked at a year ago that was half a mile away. Its expense is this. When I compare it to a CoStar report, that's what it does. Now, these are all things that humans could do.
Yeah.
But it would have taken 6 to 8 hours for a human being to do these things. And we just simply don't have the budget to keep doing that for every incoming property.
Right.
Because if you get 300 incoming properties, you're looking at several full-time employees to do that. But now we can have AI do it in 5 minutes, and we can have it do enhancements that would have gone beyond that 8-hour time frame that we would have taken.
Yeah.
Now, so I gave you two examples, a rent comp analysis and a T12 analysis.
Yeah.
Now imagine that over a year, by incentivizing our employees, we have built 400 of those apps.
Wow.
That is an AI first company where every employee is told that they have to spend an hour on AI every day. And if they don't, they can't work with us. But if they do, we'll bonus them. And we've taken that fear away from them that they're going to be replaced by AI by letting them know and showing them that we're not letting anybody go. We're just growing our company faster.
I love that. What's your future vision? How do you see real estate and AI changing over the next 10 years? Obviously, you've addressed some massive changes and abilities that it brings to your team, but where do you see that going over the next decade or so?
I think that AI will allow us to make real estate more liquid. Today, the truth is that people like us that are full-time and have armies of employees, they are able to do all of this analysis, but individuals can't do it.
Right.
I see a time frame where AI with access to small tools, you'll be able to rent an AI that already has back-end access to CoStar and Yardi Matrix and 10 other tools, right? And it's not going to cost you $20 a month. It might cost you $200 a month, but it will be a vastly superior analyst to anything that you can do on your own. And it'll give you the ability to get into real estate. So the entry barrier for real estate will go down, which I suppose may be bad for people like us, but it'll be good for everyone else.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that. Man, I just really appreciate your expertise and teaching me something new today. I am curious and I always love to know what other people are doing in the market in different sectors. And so maybe tell us where people can find you. I know you've got a couple books you'd like to share about. I would love to get people connected with you.
Yeah, so firstly, our book is free. We give it away. It's super interesting. There's fun anecdotes in it. I think you'll enjoy it. It's basically the life and times of a geek. And the what we've I've always felt that knowledge should be free, and it should be like a Wikipedia, right? You go to Wikipedia, they might ask you for money once in a year, but they're not forcing you to do anything. It's just always meant to be free. So I was obsessed with the idea of creating a real estate Wikipedia with a heavier focus on multifamily, but single family, Airbnb, industrial, self-storage, hotels, retail. And we built it at multifamilyU.com. U stands for university. So multifamilyU.com/club.
Okay.
So if you go to multifamilyU.com, don't forget the U.com/club, you'll notice that there's a huge amount of very powerful, very interesting, well-presented, easy to understand charts and graphs type of data on various things in real estate. Not just one thing or two things, but lots and lots of interesting things that give you knowledge. We have tens of thousands of people that are part of this club, and 1% to 2% of them become investors with us. Everyone else is just getting it for free. There's no upsell, there's no premium tier, there's no subscription. It's just free.
Yeah. That's
multifamilyU.com/club.
awesome. We will make sure that all of your contact information is in our show notes. And Neal, thank you again so much for your time. We really appreciate it and looking forward to staying connected in the future. Stay tuned,
Thanks so
everyone,
much.
for our next episode. We'll have another great guest just like Neal, sharing information that you won't want to miss. Have a great day. If today's episode gave you valuable commercial real estate insights, subscribe, rate, and share it. Connect with me and the David Commercial Real Estate team through the show notes. Remember, real estate is more than buildings. It's about building community. See you next time.